Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to post-episode issues, the Game of Thrones, Season 1, Episode 2, The Kingsroad. And we're on our way down the Kingsroad. It's a dangerous place to go for two
Especially if you're a
hippie
butcher
boys like
boy.
us. Yeah, it's a very dangerous way to roll down the Kingsroad, but we're here to journey that way, heading up north to the Wall. We're back to talk more Game of Thrones. Sorry we didn't give anybody pre-warnings, so if anyone can't check this out live, we hope that you share your thoughts about the second episode of Game of Thrones in the comment section below. And also, as we're approaching episode 3 that we're going to be talking about next week, if anyone has any questions about that episode ahead of time, please email me at igotissuesman@gmail.com. And you can get in any questions you want about the next episode so we can answer them at that show so we can get ahead of this stuff and we can date back. So if anyone hasn't already checked out our videos, we do recaps of different television shows, and we've decided to go back and watch all of Game of Thrones and recap the entire series. So if you're into Game of Thrones and you're curious about watching that, please hit that subscribe button. With me, as always, is my co-host on this adventure, Joe Dirty Locks. Hey, Joe.
Hey, it's good to be with everybody out there. Sorry we couldn't give a pre-warning, but
Yeah, it happens though. I mean, sometimes we just need to fit it in, slip it in the right spot and stick it in there whenever we can get these recaps out there. To give you a little pre-warning, if any of you are interested in Vikings, we'll be doing Vikings probably around 8:30, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Saturday evening. The date is the 21st, I believe, Saturday the 21st.
yeah, that sounds about right.
So let's get right into Game of Thrones. Let's not waste any time and get into talking about the second episode of the series, Joe. Now, we start off our whole episode with our credits, but our credits are different than the first episode, Joe. We see different places. Is this going to happen every time?
I hope so. It's an interesting map. It's fun to look at.
It is. It's like watching a real life mousetrap board game going in the Game of Thrones world. It's pretty interesting. I'd love to see if they sold models like that so you could recreate that and then knock it off.
I got the pop-up book. That kind of counts, right?
Welcome, Ren. We're glad you got to check this out and join us for this adventure here today. And yeah, so the intro was different. I really like that, and I hope they keep it up. I wonder if the locations that they show in the intro are going to be the locations that we learn about in the episode, because it seemed that was the case tonight.
Yeah, no, that would be a great idea if they did that, and I remember looking forward to it in the future.
Yeah, I remember since we've got into the DeLorean and traveled 88 miles per hour back in time to before we watched Game of Thrones, and we're talking about this for the very first time.
Yeah, no, I always remember being very excited to see if that map changed every week, and even if it didn't change every week, when it does change, it's fun to see and notice.
Absolutely, and I just think it's funny because I know from reading some of the comments of the first episode, we do have a few people checking in with us that are checking in for the very first time, that are watching Game of Thrones for the first time. So we both need to, and people in the comment section, please try to stay. I may remove some spoilers as they're posted if I think that they're a little bit too much, because I want to try to keep this as a safe place for first time.
And here's the thing too. Let this be a warning to everybody right now. We will try, and that's the line. There is no do or do not in this situation. There is only try. We might get ourselves carried away. We love this series, and things may come out of our mouth that you're going to be upset you heard, but we will definitely try not to do that.
And especially on some of the bigger events, we'll try not to do that. We may slip up from time to time, but Ren would just happen to pull herself out of a sick bed at the right time. Well, we're really sorry that you're sick, and we give you, if we wouldn't get sick too, we'd give you a hug and say we hope you feel better, and hope listening to us bullshit about Game of Thrones can help distract you from being sick just a little bit.
Yeah,
sucks. It's the season. So our episode opens up with the credits, as we said, showing Pentos. And that's where we open up and we show the Dothraki grassland, and we see Daenerys, and she's riding on a horse traveling with her new husband's tribe. Now, you could tell that she's not having a good time. She's tired, she's sick, she just doesn't look like she's had a good meal. Even though they
Oh,
have
she
been
definitely hasn't had a good meal. There's two things that Dothraki have
in abundance,
in
grass and
abundance.
yeah, grass and horses, and she's not eating the grass. But I guess it's important to mention that Daenerys, even though they got ousted from their rightful place as, I mean, not them, their older brother, but as heirs to the throne, as this hierarchy, they they didn't go into living in squalor. They went and lived with this guy that really took care of them, gave them all the creature comforts that they're used to. So
Yeah,
putting
like a
Daenerys in this situation is a real shock to the system. She must just be like, holy fuck, what's going on?
Yeah. That's a hell of a long friggin' horse ride. There's no carriage. There's no nothing like that. This is her on horseback in the baking prairie sun.
Mm-hmm. So Jorah Mormont comes up to her and offers her something to drink, and she asks if they have anything else to eat. And this is where she says the line that Joe said: the Dothraki have two things in abundance, grass and horses, and people can't live on grass. I guess you could if you had to. You know, there's probably moisture in there. You could live. You could...
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say no to all of that.
You might not thrive.
Exactly.
This isn't earth grass either. This is weird Esseros grass that.
So it could be supremely nutritious.
Yeah, it could be.
It's desert grass essentially, and then he goes on and starts talking about the place.
Well,
where
it gives her the jerky, and the look on her face when she takes another bite of like the horse jerky is just like.
It's disgusting. And he starts telling her a little bit more about grass, and he tells her about in the Shadowlands and the Shy, and that's where the eggs came, where her eggs were brought to her from. He says that there are fields of that the Dothraki believe that there are fields of ghost grass that murder all grasses, other grass, and one day that ghost grass will take over all lands, and that's how the world will end.
Yeah.
And yeah. All she cares about is food. The Dothraki are very scary.
The Dothraki are what?
I said the Dothraki are very scary people.
Yeah.
Ren says, guys, I don't know why, but the quality of the video is going in and out, just saying. Let me look into that. I apologize. Is my signal okay with you, Joe?
I believe so.
Okay. I took down my settings a little bit. Ren, tell me if this helped out at all. So one day the grass will take over the world, and that's how it will end. And she wants to eat more. She doesn't care. She just gets frustrated by the whole situation and is just like, oh, God. Jorah Mormont tells her it will get easier, but Daenerys doesn't look like she's buying that line of bullshit. She's just like, this is not going to get easier. My ass hurts from all the bad stuff. From riding on the stallion and getting ridden by the stallion. And then we see her three maids help her off a horse and walk her to the tent. And as she's like limping in there, and
Amazing she can walk.
Yeah, it is amazing she can walk. She's never spent this much time on horseback. No way.
And she really can barely walk. She's having a lot of problems, no doubt.
Yeah, if you're not used to that, that's going to kill you.
Yeah, you got to figure it's got to be really hard for you to deal with that stuff, and suddenly you're living basically a pampered lifestyle, and then you're on horseback with a gang of Dothraki hoarders.
Not to mention what happens to her probably most nights of the week, that she's in bed with a, Dothraki horde leader.
In bed,
Khal Drogo.
Top.
Yeah, Rocky Clifftop. Her knees must have been destroyed. Like her palms and her knees.
Dothraki creature comfort.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, she's in bad shape.
Like, it's definitely brutal for her right now.
Thank you, Ren. It is. I adjust the signal a little bit, so let's see if that ends up working out. You might need to see my face a little closer up than normal. But
I closed my video playback, so you might be able to turn your
video back up.
Yeah.
Cool. Excellent. So here we go. Ren, keep me posted if it ends up getting crappy again. So we see the Dothraki group horde in action, making camp, and it's really cool. What I like about this show, right off the bat is we're seeing a lot of different locations right away. We saw Winterfell, we saw King's Landing, now we're seeing the Dothraki Sea area. It's very cool how the production value of the show gets the most out of each location and creates a very different kind of feel depending on where they are.
Yep.
They had a small budget too to begin with.
Especially in season one,
Relatively,
absolutely.
yeah.
Katie,
Yeah, they did a lot with what they had for season 1. It was very, very good.
Now, Jorah then talks to Viserys, and I got to admit, this is the one of the few scenes where he doesn't come off as a total dick. He comes off as a little dick, but you can tell he's trying. You almost respect where he's coming from with this, because Jorah suggests that he return to Pentos, live in the high life. Why are you dealing with this shit when you don't have to deal with this shit? Wait in comfort. And he says, no, fuck that. I'm not waiting in comfort. I'm staying right the fuck here.
Yeah, until I get my men and get them on a boat and go get my kingdom, I ain't going anywhere. I'm going to remind him every day that he owes me.
Right, and you got to give him, he's got balls for that. I mean, stupidity, yes. Arrogance, yes, but a little balls for that.
Well, you got to be thinking, like, what does this kid have? He has absolutely nothing. He's got the magister of this town, and that's it. And now he's not there with that magister anymore. This is like, he's in the middle of nowhere. This is the Dothraki horde. They just travel around murdering villages and shit. What, you know, like, he really shouldn't be there. He's in grave danger.
He is in grave danger. And I don't even understand exactly his mindset for being there. I mean, like I said, I respect the balls.
Ego, right?
Is it ego, you think?
Yep.
His ego to just need to be around all the time and be overseeing the situation? It's
absolutely. He wants his kingdom. He's ego. He's vanity. He's the rightful heir, and he wants it back, and he's entitled. Complete entitlement.
So
Lack of insight into his situation, into himself, because he doesn't need it. Nobody's ever told him he's wrong, and that's what I find kind of strange. Yeah, he may be growing up a prince, but or an exiled prince. I'm just a little surprised he wasn't smacked around a little bit more in this foreign land.
Yeah, you got to figure he was isolated, or him and Daenerys for that period of time until now. Both of them must have been isolated and kept pampered and kept treated not much differently from the way that they have been treated in the past.
Just a couple of like supremely loyal to the family kind of people.
Yeah, it only filled them up, and it makes sense if we look back to the last episode with what the host is filling, what information he keeps filling Viserys' head with. Oh, people at home are wishing you well. They are calling Robert usurper. And I mean, we hear that from Robert's perspective this evening in this episode, so we know that there is some element of truth to that, or at least to the family, to the Targaryen family, that there are some people in Westeros that would welcome a return of a Targaryen.
Of course, there were lots of families that were on the Targaryens. It was a war. The country was split. It was a civil war. There's lots of people that were loyal to the Targaryens that will forever think of Baratheon as the usurper, the barbarian who came in and murdered families because his loved one, because a couple of people he knows were killed. He started a war and killed thousands.
Now, we get a really cool quote from Viserys here when referencing this. As brutish as this life is, it's better than beheading if Robert ever found me. So he has at least a mild perspective of, and what I wrote in my notes is he's almost bearable in this scene. Saying things like that where you understand that he at least understands what's going on to some extent makes him a little bit more of a tragic figure in some ways, or at least you can look why his mind's all fucked up the way he is. At least that's why I mean, you're shaking your head. You think of him as just a little bitch, but if someone's brought up in this feeling like they can't do any wrong, I mean, it's not right, but it's a fact of who he is.
Well, it may be the fact of who he is, but it's hard for me for a character to come back from scenes such as his opening up his sister's robe and glaring at her, and I'd let all of his men and all of his horses fuck you to get my kingdom back. Like, it's hard to feel any kind of sorrow or tragic sympathy for him in a theatrical sense whatsoever.
No, I hear you. I guess
He's on that path for me, and he's only there for one reason, to make sure Viserys fucks the hell out of this guy so he gets his fucking horde to cross the sea. He's just such a freaking idiot that it should be common knowledge that the Dothraki don't put their fucking horses on boats. Right? Has that been... Did I just spoil? That's been talked about, isn't it? They won't cross the salt waters?
It gets talked about tonight. In this episode, Ned says it to Robert when Robert brings up being afraid that Daenerys married this guy. We'll talk about it later, but just to make reference, because we're talking about it now, Ned's reaction to the 100,000-person Dothraki horde is, there could be 1 million fucking Dothraki. They don't go on boats, Robert. They don't have a fleet. And if they did come, we'd knock their dumbasses back into the ocean.
Right.
And to some point where I think Ned Stark is being a little pig-headed. I think Robert has a better read on this situation than Ned does personally, where Robert feels like a war is coming, that these people are to be feared. And I do think if the Dothraki happened to land on Westeros, that would be a bad situation. That wouldn't be a good situation.
It's what's on his mind, right? And he knows that Jon Arryn most likely died of some sort of suspicious circumstance, and maybe doesn't know why, but his Hand of the King is dead. There's a lot going on. The woman just married the girl just married a Dothraki lord. So he's kind of just thinking like he's starting to lose his empire, his kingdom. He hasn't kept watch of it. He's been out whoring and boring.
You would think that hopefully he would have, if he was going to ignore his family and ignore his kids, that he would have spent a lot of attention and time on protecting the realm and just being more of an iron hand of the king, sort of type king.
The only thing you got to imagine that the start of his reign started with him trying to drown the sorrows of losing Ned's sister,
Ileana or whatever. No,
right.
No, that was the Viper's sister. What was
Lisa Weiss.
Whatever. We'll be corrected in the comment section very, very quickly in a second here.
So and that was probably a lot of time spent drunk in the bed of other women.
Yeah,
as we know.
Hence all the bastards.
Right.
So this conversation continues, and then Viserys asks him why Ned Stark wanted his head. And he says, Zoros tells him that he caught some poachers on his land and he sold them to a slaver. Viserys kind of chuckles and says, under his rule, he wouldn't be punished for such nonsense. But you get the feeling, just to go to Jorah for a second here, you get the feeling like Jorah thinks he should have been punished for what he did. Jorah has this look on his face when Viserys says that, no, Ned Stark was right. I fucked up. And I took that from his expression in his face, that he feels like he fucked up, and he feels like, you're wrong.
Slaving's wrong. He did it for a quick buck to make his ex-wife happy.
Perfect, Ren Redwood. She sums up Viserys in one word: entitlement. The kid feels so entitled. Is what it really comes down to. So after this interaction, we return to Winterfell, and we find Tyrion. We find our hero Tyrion Lannister waking up in a kennel with puppies. He's very hungover, and he's cuddling with a doggy. It's cute. It's a great image. And this Joffrey guy shows up. I'm not sure about him. I don't know if he's going to end up being a good guy or not. Maybe he can learn from some of these things. This is a very important scene. I hope he takes something from what happens in the scene and learns and becomes a better character as time goes. Because I think he may have potential here, this Joffrey, to be a good husband for Sansa. So I hope this goes on. We'll get into what happens in this episode, where he shows a weird side that I want to explore a little bit. So he says, "Uncle, better looking than most of the bitches you wake up with."
Yeah, he's in the stall sleeping with dogs.
Yeah, and this is another person that we could use the word that Ren Redwood said. Another person that probably symbolizes the word entitlement.
Oh yeah,
maybe
every Lannister does, but especially Joffrey, who's not a Lannister. He's a Baratheon.
A Baratheon. I would say especially Joffrey, and Jaime does it to a certain extent too. Jaime has all the Lannisters do. Fucking all the Lannisters do. Because I was just gonna say, oh, then Cersei, then Tywin. They all fucking do.
Yeah.
So Tyrion says, or Joffrey says to him that we're going to be leaving for King's Landing today. Now Tyrion asks Joffrey, tells him that he should give his sympathies to the Starks, go there, go before them. And Joffrey's response is, "What good will it do? I didn't even know the boy, nothing." And Tyrion goes, "No, your absence has been noted. You should really go in there and do something." And Joffrey continues, "The boy means nothing to me," which Tyrion's response is an accurate pimp slaps that
right
bitch across the face.
I think you can even see like Tyrion like go up on his tippy toes and like he puts everything into it. He swivels his hips.
Excuse me, I was wrong. I was incorrect. The line that causes Tyrion to slap him is when Joffrey complains that he can't abide the wailing of women. That's when Tyrion slaps him. And then he gives him one of those, "Say what one more time, motherfucker!" He gives him the Sam Jackson. And Joffrey says, "What?" And he slaps him again.
Yeah.
And then Joffrey says, "I'm going to tell my mom," and he pimp slaps him one more time. He gets 3 in. Blap, blap, blap. And Joffrey goes running off as Tyrion. "You will go to the Starks on your hands and knees, and you will tell them how sorry you are." And this is a great... I love the Hound. Yeah, and the Hound goes, he'll remember this. He'll remember that. Little master, and Tyrion goes, "I hope he remembers that, and I hope, and if he doesn't, remind him."
It's interesting to see this that the Hound does absolutely nothing, because he's there to protect the prince, right? Tyrion's just the prince's uncle, like the queen's brother. Like he's really not that. He's not higher on the chain than Joffrey should be to the Hound. So I'm pretty sure the Hound should have stopped that. And I was like, kind of like, huh? Why is the Hound not stopping the prince, the heir to the frickin' throne, from getting his face slapped? Even if it is, his uncle slapping him.
Oh my God!
It seems a little strange.
It's so difficult to not talk about future events, but I get the feeling that the Hound doesn't really like or respect Joffrey that much. The feeling I'm getting here is that
nobody likes or respects Joffrey at all.
I think he is supposed to be trying to like imply that everybody knows that this kid needs some fatherly attention and needs someone to discipline him, and no one else is doing it. It is worth mentioning that in the book, Joffrey in these situations comes off a little different. He's a little bit more of a competent warrior, not a warrior, but can fight a little bit more. Comes off a little bit less whiny pussy, and a little bit more cocky, young Jamie, thinking he's better than everybody. And I think the way that Jackie Gleason plays Joffrey, plays him a little bit slimier and a little bit weaker than he's portrayed in the book, from my perspective.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Because they set up a lot of Joffrey versus Robb in the book, and that they can fight, and that they're going one-on-one against each other. You don't see anything of that in the show, because Robb would just fuck him up completely. And on the show, they make Joffrey seem like you couldn't even imagine him fighting. I mean, Arya takes him down a few minutes later on. And I mean, that happens, but you know what I'm saying. Like in the book, they go into how Joffrey and Robb are competing and going against each other in these events that they have when they're visiting and all this shit. So I guess I thought of Joffrey as stronger, but then visually they portray him here. But I still think I still think this guy does a fucking amazing job.
Well, I think that's also when you have the young prince and he's in tournaments and stuff, people end up cowing to him.
Very true.
He gets cocky and he knows that those are games and those are practice swords or whatever. Or he'll doesn't he do something like even when he does to the butcher boy, you use the practice sword, but I have a real sword.
Right. I guess I feel like we should have probably, if that was the case, had one scene while they're at Winterfell, similar to the movie Gladiator, when we have a scene showing Joaquin Phoenix fighting with his minions and teaching him like the dancing of the fighting and showing that he's a badass in his own little universe, just to show like him beating up a bunch of people, to be like he thinks he's the balls or something.
Right.
Instead, they play off Joffrey as he's just inept. He's just a little fucking whiny pussy.
And he is.
He is. He absolutely is. So Joffrey
ultimately through the books, like maybe not at the start. I see what you're saying. looking back at what I read. But ultimately, I think as the books progress, the character comes off exactly how he's portrayed in the series.
100%. I'm more talking about like how I read him in the Game of Thrones book.
Yeah, I think George R. R. Martin wrote stuff and then kind of decided to evolve the character, more that way, and almost went there immediately. It was like, I don't want to rewrite that stuff. So,
and it's worth mentioning and making reference to the letter that came out about the original design and his original vision for Game of Thrones, where Joffrey, I believe, is leading on the battlefield and is actually on the battlefield a few times again. At times later, and without spoiling too much of events to come, which I almost did, but I won't. So we continue. So Tyrion is excited. It's breakfast time. He joins his brother and sister and their children, and the children sitting down there, giving.
Uh-oh, technical difficulties. I wish I had my notes in front of me, but, I don't take notes, so.
Oh, sorry. I was just disconnected for a second, so I am back. Sorry about that. Did I completely disappear for a second?
No, you didn't disappear. You were on screen. You just stopped talking.
I was silent, yeah. I've mentioned it before, but it's like I'm on an episode of Lost here. I have this button. It's a power saver thing to make it sure like everything shuts off. And if I don't get to the button when it's blinking in time, my whole system powers off. It's quite exciting. It's like, again, it's like Lost, where
gotta put in the numbers.
Yeah, I gotta put in the numbers. I had to put in the numbers. I almost fucked that up, guys. Sorry about the break. So it's breakfast. Tyrion joins the brothers and sisters, and he says, "Give me some fresh bread, fish, and beer, and some bacon." Burn.
I love Tyrion in this scene too. Like, he's so relaxed, confident. You can see how much he really loves the kids.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
He's not like the other kids, not Joffrey, but the girl and Tommen, Myrcella and Tommen. Like, he really likes them. He's really good with them.
Yeah, and you get a feeling maybe, and which is why he slaps Joffrey or pimp slaps Joffrey around a bunch, that he probably cared about Joffrey at a point in time too. He's the only one that seems to be fucking trying with that kid.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And I agree with that assessment too. I agree with that.
So in his way, he's showing affection for him because he's giving him what he thinks he needs, which is a stiff fucking hand across the face.
Yeah.
And like I said, I hope Joffrey learns from this and becomes a better person over time. I think he has the potential to. Or maybe he has the potential to be a complete dick. We're going to see. So Myrcella asks if Bran is going to die, and Tyrion says apparently not. Cersei says, "What do you mean?" They all, Cersei and Jaime kind of...
going to pull through.
Yeah, he's going to pull through. And,
the looks that Jaime and Cersei give each other there are pretty fun.
Yeah, and Cersei's like, "Why make him linger in pain? He should just die." And he also says, and Tyrion goes, "The charms of the North are completely lost on you, my sister. Come on, enjoy." As Tyrion mentions that he's going to be going to the Wall to check out, the White Walkers.
Jaime's reaction is great. "Oh, don't tell me you're going to take the Black and protect our great kingdom, brother."
"No, my brother, you wound me. The whores would go broke from Dorne to Casterly Rock." It's just fucking amazing stuff there, and just,
that's right in front of the kids too.
And where Cersei says, "The children don't need to hear this filth. I'm going off." And I made major notes. We're kind of skipping over a little of about 10 or 15 different times in the scene that Cersei was a complete cunt to Tyrion. I don't use that word lightly, but she was just a complete cunt to Tyrion. I'm sorry for the people that hate that word.
He kind of goads him a little bit. Sure, like to know what the boy knows.
Yeah, what he's going to say when he wakes up. I sure would love to hear what he says. What happened when he was fell? I don't know. And Tyrion also mentions that the main reason he wants to go to the Wall is so he can sit up at the top of the Wall and piss off the Wall.
Yeah.
Which, I can't lie, have we seen someone piss off the Wall later in the... Spoiler alert, I think we see someone later in time piss off the Wall. And that was very exciting. It made me think of that scene. So, the one spoiler.
I mean, come on. Isn't that something... wouldn't you? You're sitting there on top of the Wall, and you're on watch, or you're just visiting and you have a second nobody's around.
But it's cold up there, though.
Oh yeah, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
It would freeze though. Like
Yeah, it would freeze. You
No.
gotta,
And then, well, before it hit the ground, definitely that shit.
Snap it off.
you gotta figure, Katie, not to get too much into the graphicness of men, but you have to figure that there's some sort of Night's Watch invention for making sure your thing doesn't leave your thing in the
Doesn't leave you thing.
the world of always winter. And Ren would add,
Pea cozy, yeah.
yeah, there's a pea snuggie or a pea cozy. In patent pended. And Ren would adds about the kids in Tyrion and they love him back. Yeah, you get the feeling in that scene big time. We forgot to mention that Marcella and Tommen fucking love Tyrion. They just have such big smiles on their face when they're looking at them, and they look so depressed when Cersei drags their asses out of there.
Yep.
Like, they just love him. They love him so much because he's the only one that's probably nice to them and shows them love. In the real way, you get a feeling that obviously Robert doesn't show them attention. Cersei is giving all of her attention to Joffrey probably because he's the oldest son and the successor to the king. And Jaime is not a great uncle.
No, Jaime's not. He's not the kind of Uncle Tyrion is for sure.
No.
Yeah, they are. They're narcissists. They're ego-driven. They're caught up in their own thing.
So Jaime, speaking of being ego-driven, Jaime immediately, when they leave the room and it's just him and Tyrion, immediately brings back up Bran, saying that personally, talking about himself, I'd rather die than live as a cripple or a grotesque. And Tyrion disagrees. He says, death is so final. Life is so full of possibilities.
Well,
And
that's a jab at him because he is a dwarf, and like in the books, he's much more grotesque than the actor portraying him.
Old
Is.
wolves are bastards in their father's
Or people's perspective of him is more like that. It's been argued that the book, since they're all from characters' perspectives, is you're always reading what people think, not necessarily what they really look like. And Tyrion could look the same exact way in that world of the book, but people just look at him.
Oh,
like
right,
that.
because yeah, right. Absolutely, but there are certain features that are
Right. Eventually we get to a point where there's certain features that don't, or the two color eyes, it gets described a lot in the
right.
book.
He's supposed to have one blue eye and one brown eye.
The bleach blonde hair, similar to Cersei and Jaime. He's supposed to have like the same hair color. And I think even in episode 2, they've ditched him even trying to give him blonde hair. They tried a little bit in episode 1, but I think as soon as this episode, they're already starting to say, we don't really have to worry.
Right on screen.
Probably. It probably just didn't look correct. So Jaime brings him back up, and he says he'd rather die than live as a cripple or grotesque. Speaking of the cripple and grotesque, death is so final, life is full of possibilities. And then he mentions he'd be interested in hearing what Bran has to say. And this is where Jaime says to him, my dear brother, I wonder whose side you're on. And he says, my dear brother, you wound me. You know how much I love my family.
Yep.
I think Tyrion just wants to know the truth. I don't think he'd ever bring charges on Cersei and Jaime for what happened. I think he knows what happens, and he just likes being an instigator. He's just like this quest for the truth.
Right. He knows that there's something going on. It just all seems very strange to him.
But everybody knows something's going on. I mean, you figure it that Tyrion, it becomes pretty obvious in the scene that Tyrion knows and Jaime knows that Tyrion knows that he's banging his sister.
Yeah.
It's pretty obvious that it's in the subtext of the scene that Tyrion knows what the two of them are up to. He's got to. He's not that stupid.
But the thing is why would anybody suspect anything but this kid fell? He's climbing a couple 100-foot tower, and his mother doesn't want him to. It's the north. Shit's wet. Shit's cold. Like,
to quote Master Lewin from later, but the boy was always sure-footed before.
Even still.
Mm.
People fall.
Yeah. So speaking of people I'd like to throw out a window, Cersei visits Catelyn at, spoiler alert about 24 Live Another Day, someone I'd like to throw out a window and someone who's been thrown out a window. at Bran's bedside, and Kat goes to stand, and Cersei, uncharacteristically, tells her to sit down. It's your home. I'm your guest. Sit. And she looks at Bran, says, handsome boy, and then immediately makes it about herself. Because that's the only thing she can be genuine about, is when she's talking about herself. She can't genuinely show sorrow, so she decided to open up about a story about herself that she can show how sad she is about her own thing and make it seem like she's feeling what Catelyn's feeling there and trying to sympathize with her or empathize with her, but it just comes off as self-serving to me.
No, she was not being nice.
No.
She was being very cold and kind of cruel to Catelyn at that moment.
She tells her of her first son, a little boy with black hair who died of a fever. He was a fighter and tried to fight, but he didn't make it. Oh, no, you probably don't want to hear this. Okay. Now, it happened years ago, and Robert, when it died, was punching walls, bloody. It was the things men will do to show that they care, which is a little dig at the fact that Ned's leaving. That's saying that Robert freaked out when this happened, but when your son's happening, Ned's coming with us. Ha ha ha.
The baby died, or was it a stillborn, did she say?
It was it was died. It died of a fever.
Yeah. Like Katie just said, she probably killed it. I'm not bearing this bastard, this mother, raising this asshole who's out gallivanting around. I'm not raising his kids. She hates Robert Baratheon.
Yeah.
You know, he dragged her up to the north, and then like the first thing he did was see his ex-loved one.
This is hard to talk about with knowledge of the future because there's a scene that is coming up later in season 1. I want to talk about this again, of a conversation that Robert and her have together. Spoiler alert, Robert and Cersei talk later, and they have a conversation. I want to make a note on this point and talk about this again then, because there's stuff I don't want to say.
I mean, it's obviously not a great marriage. She's banging her brother in the tower at Winterfell.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wouldn't doubt what you're saying. So Catelyn never knew, and she describes that it was just a little boy, a little thing. And it was interesting that Cersei keeps going to birds because she refers to Sansa as little dove, and she calls this kid a little bird without feathers. And
I really enjoyed Breaking Birds next when she was a little girl.
all I heard out of there was mumble Breaking Birds, but I think
she probably really enjoyed Breaking Birds next when she was little.
I love it. Awesome point, Katie. So then they took the body.
Katie's got a whole profile worked up for Cersei Lannister.
Katie, you're gonna have to come in and be a big part of our Cersei bio podcast. So then so they say they took away the body as Robert held her, and she screamed and she never went to visit, never saw it again, and she hopes that the mother brings the child back to you, and she's grateful. She says she's grateful. It's grateful that you dote over him and give him anything. And then we hear eerie music as the scene cuts.
And the mother is one of the 7. There's the 7 gods. Then we hear Robert and Catelyn talk about the gods, her gods and his gods in episode 1. And her gods are the 7, and the mother is one of the 7. It's like the mother, the child, the sailor, the wife, the cook, the lover, and the thief, or some shit.
Yeah, like the guys from the YMCA song.
Right.
Yeah. So, and later in the episode, we see Catelyn put a wreath of wood on where Bran's sleeping, which is in reference to the old gods and some of the wood from the trees Vaughn 2300, welcome to the room. Man, if Kat only knew what was going on, the truth in that situation, she would have stabbed that bitch through the heart. Ren Redwood, she's just up there to see for herself what kind of condition Bran's in. I think
it kind of looks like she wants to stab her in the heart anyway, without knowing what happened.
To jump ahead a little bit, not as much as she wants to stab someone else in the heart that comes and visits later.
Oh.
But but I agree. Cersei's up there more than anything because Cersei understands that the best way to manipulate the situation is to be in the situation. She wants to know what kind of, like you said, Ren, what kind of condition Bran's in. She also just wants to get a layout of the situation, just look at it and
total recon.
Exactly, total recon and total also to cover up, to make it seem like, oh, if I had something to hide, I wouldn't just show up there. It's many duplicitous means of the reason why Cersei went in there, none of which are anything to do with anybody's concern but herself and Jaime's. So Jaime, meanwhile, visits, and this is a really awesome scene that I forgot about. He visits the Winterfell Armory where he finds Jon Snow, and as far as I know this I hope we get more scenes with these two together because these two are awesome together. Yeah. And Jaime visits the armory and he finds Jon Snow forging a sword. Jaime sarcastically walks up to him and asks him if he's forging hey, are you forging a sword for the wall? And Jon says, no, I already have one. And Jaime quickly comes at him, so have you ever swung it? And Jon says, of course I have. I mean, at someone. Which Jon says no, and Jaime then just puts his hand on his shoulder and like starts intimidating him. He goes, "It's a strange thing when you slice a man, and you realize that they're just sacks of meat and bone with blood to keep them standing." And then he like pats him on the back. He's like, "Thanks for guarding from us from all the perils beyond the wall, wildlings, White Walkers, and whatnot. Grateful for strong men like you." And then he grabs him again and just like shows him how much stronger he is. But I think
and bigger, and yeah, he's not really being an asshole. I looked at this conversation like it was a lot like Tyrion's conversation with him. It was open, it was candid, it was I'm a lot older and wiser than you, but if you really listen to what I'm saying, there's good advice, and he's not necessarily being a big asshole right now.
No, I don't think so, and I agree with you 100%. I also think he's speaking from his own experiences. He's speaking from knowing that his life was given up joining the Kingsguard. It's not the same thing exactly, but in some ways, the Kingsguard and the Night Watch have a lot in common with each other, with the way that their life becomes about something else. And so Jaime knows exactly what the fuck he's talking about in this situation. And he wants to make sure that if no one else tells Jon, if he knows what he's getting himself into, he's going to be the one to fucking tell him.
And it's interesting to note, too, that the entire time through the first two episodes that the Lannisters and the Starks are together, there's a lot of, like, odd looks between them. There's a very uncomfortable feeling between the Lannisters and the Starks. Not Robb Baratheon, but Cersei and Jaime and Ned and Catelyn. They're not great friends. Tyrion, Tywin was originally on the side of the Targaryens in the Great War and stuff. So Jaime was the Kingsguard
of the Mad King that killed Ned's family.
And Tywin was the hand of the king at one point
And they switched, and without getting too much into it, because we're going to do a whole podcast on this at some point on Robert's Rebellion, and then Jaime at the last, in Ned's mind, Jaime and Tywin both at the last minute when the war turned, decided to switch sides. So he looks at them as slimy and opportunistic.
Right.
Is the best way of describing how Ned looks at the Lannisters. And Catelyn just doesn't trust them because she's a smart chick.
Yep.
So he walks off. Jaime walks off, but Jon is like, no, wait, I'm gonna talk back here, and stumbles because again, we get more into this in the book. How much, in a lot of ways, Jon respects Jaime and looks at Jaime as like, holy shit, this guy's fucking amazing.
He's the Kingsguard. He's the Kingslayer.
And he says in specific words, Jaime Lannister is what a knight should look like.
He's a pimp. Like he's all around pimp. He's like one of the best fighters. Wins all these tournaments. Like he's a superstar, a rock star as far as Westeros is concerned. Everybody knows who he is.
Absolutely, and everyone, and even if they talk shit about him, know how powerful and cunning he is in some way.
And he's a great fighter. He's a great sword fighter.
And Jon's
no joke about how he's a sword fighter.
Absolutely. There's no joke about that. And Jon comes back at him. We've been protecting the wall for 8,000 years. And Jaime goes, we already taken your vows? Jon goes, I will soon enough. And he goes, give my regards from the Lannisters. Give my regards to the Night's Watch. I'm sure it'll be thrilling serving with such an elite force.
Yep, which is, of course, joke to the fact that pretty much everybody that's at the wall is there as punishment for crimes committed, rape, murder, thievery, slave trading, being on the wrong side from the war. Like, there's a lot of reasons to get sent to the wall instead of have your head cut off.
And
The wall always needs men, and you get a complete pardon from your crimes. You just can never leave the Night's Watch, or
yep,
you die.
yep, or any family, or theoretically have any sex, or whatever. We'll get into that more when we
Well,
talk.
those vows,
We'll
we'll
get
talk
into
about
that
them.
more later. We'll get more into that later. And then his final line to Jon is, well, if you'll be thrilling to serve such an elite force, and if not, well, it's just for life. And as Vaughn points out, it's more of a do you know what you're in for type of thing, because the
Right.
Kingsguard is the same, except they get all the respect. It's like being the Night's Watch. It's like the same vows essentially, but you get no respect.
Zero respect. You're with the exact opposite crowd. Well, pretty much you're with the same crowd before they get sent to the wall. A lot of the same crowd too.
The ones that got caught.
The ones that got caught, right?
Yeah, before they get sent to the wall.
Right, and that's one of those things that's kind of funny that Jon Snow is more, I want to go to the wall with Benjen and live up there and do that than, like, why don't I go to King's Landing too and try to be a Kingsguard or something like that
Not
for
to get
Uncle Rob Baratheon.
Do you think it's more because of the constant badgery and emotional damage that Catelyn's put on him his whole life?
Yeah, he's been completely browbeat to think that he's no good, and I think he also thinks that it'd be no different. He would just be Ned's bastard son and would be constantly reminded of that at King's Landing too.
Yeah. Because I'm sure if Ned pushed it and if it was a different situation, Robert will legitimize him.
No matter where he goes, he's always going to be Ned's bastard child.
No, I
It's
hear you.
a big scandal, and even if he ever gets legitimized, he will still be called in, behind his back, referred to as the bastard.
The bastard son of Ned Stark. But I'm kind of surprised that Robert didn't immediately do that after the war, just considering who Robert is and how close Ned was to him, it would make sense that if he just did that. I'm sure he offered, and Ned was like, "Fuck you, no, I will take this. I will take this sin." So after he's done smithing, Jon goes to visit Arya, which this is a great scene too, and to talk a little bit about the George R. R. Martin letter where there's a romantic relationship between Jon and Arya. You can almost see it here in this scene with the foundation of it a little bit. I don't want to get too weird, but you can almost see it. You can almost
and she's really young too at this point, but you can see that they're very close.
Very close. Very
like
close.
It's supposed to, like in the letter he says it evolves eventually over the entire story that they'll fall in love.
But knowing that now, you can see the spark here. I could see maybe it's placebo-ish because I knew it, so I thought about it, but I felt it here a little bit. So
Well, you can definitely get the feeling that no matter what there is between Catelyn and him, Jon loves his brothers and sisters.
Absolutely.
All of them.
Yeah, and he seems specifically close to Arya, and,
especially with Arya, correct. And I think that's because she doesn't fit that same role. Like, she's not a lady, just like he's not a little lordling, he's a bastard. And she's not, even though she's a little lady, she doesn't identify with that. She wants to be, for what he's there for, she wants to be a sword fighter, she wants to be an archer, she wants to be an adventurer, she wants to wear armor and fight. She doesn't want to sew with fucking Sansa and eat lemon cakes and tea and crumpets all the fucking time. She wants to be out there. And Jon Snow is very much the same way. So them two in particular have a very good bond, and she looks up to him.
And to add another layer to that, they're both second fiddle to someone that's, and notice the quote-unquote, better of them. Rob and
Sansa to her and Rob to him.
Right.
They're both the older, better version of what they should have been. They just are like, okay. But Jon is not older than Jon is a little bit older than Rob, I believe.
Right.
So
right, but it's still.
But he's not a bastard. He's the rightful heir, and as such, Catelyn has made sure that he gets better or more training, better or more schooling. Less work in the barn, less. So Rob has become better at a lot of things than Jon has.
Right. So Jon goes to visit Arya, who's packing to leave Winterfell. She's helped by her pet wolf, Nymeria, and she's bitching about why she needs that age-old thing about why you need to pack your stuff neat if you're just going to unpack it again and pack it a bunch of times. Fuck that. Jon says he has something and I bet Sansa's really good at packing. I wrote in my notes. Jon says that he has a very special present for her. But first we get to see her try to do a trick with her pup of getting her pup to take her. What is it? Shoes? Is it shoes or socks? I forget. But she goes, shoes, go get the shoes, and the dog just the wolf just sits there and kind of looks at her, gives her the side head
I
look.
got no doubt that that's worked 100 times while she's alone.
It's like you when you used to smoke, flipping the cigarette into your mouth. Like,
Yeah, oh, I could do it anytime no one was watching.
Exactly. You're like in Mystery Men, the invisible guy that can be invisible when no one's watching. So Jon has a present for her, and he says, "Close the door." He gives her the sword, and he says, "It's not a toy. Don't cut yourself." He helped forge it. It's small and skinny, just like you, Arya. Won't hack a man up, but it will poke him full of holes. Work at it. How do you like the balance? Does it feel good? And she says, I think it feels good. And he says, first lesson, stick him with the pointy end. I know what end. And then she goes to hug him and almost stabs him with the pointy end.
Yeah, he grabs his hand. He grabs her hand and puts the sword down, and she puts it down very carefully on the bed or the nightstand or whatever the hell it was.
Very good point by Renwood about the two of them. They both take more after the Stark side, where some of the other siblings, the two older siblings that we're talking of, take a little bit more after the Tully side. I would say when we're talking about Bran and Rickon, it's hard to talk too much about them, of see what sides. I'd say Bran's a good split of both, because he definitely has his mother's wise assness, and then he definitely has some Stark in him. And Rickon, we obviously don't know enough about. He's just too young.
Right.
So Arya names the sword Needle, and they say their goodbyes. And as I said, she goes to hug him, and she almost stabs him with the pointy end when they hug, and they say goodbye. I hope this isn't the last time we see these two together either. I hope we have a lot more scenes with them.
Yeah, me too.
So Jon goes and visits Bran, and we made reference to this scene before. Catelyn, we thought she was vicious and evil in the first episode, the way she just looked down on him. She is not happy. Like she is looking at him like he caused this. Like, that's the look she's giving at him. Like, this fucking is your fault, Jon Snow. How could you do this to Bran? And he asks if he can talk to him or see him, and she goes, yep, you saw him. That's her response. Yep, I came to see Bran. Yep, you seen him. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. Oh, she is absolutely pissed at Jon Snow. She does not like this kid whatsoever. Not even a shred of anything. You know, and he's there trying to say some nice stuff and say bye to Bran because he's going to the Wall and doesn't know if he'll ever see him again or if he'll pull through. And Catelyn just glares up at him with daggers like shooting from her eyes, and I want you gone. And that's when you notice Ned Stark is just standing there in the background at the doorway, and he hears and sees the whole thing.
You think Ned's ever had the conversation with her that just be like, could you go a little easy on the kid? Do you think he's ever dared have that conversation with her?
I think absolutely they've had that conversation many times, and I think, or at least a couple of times, and it's one that Ned cannot possibly win at all.
I felt so bad for him in this scene, Joe. She was just so mean. He's like trying to talk to him, brother. I know I always wanted to visit the Wall together, but when you can come, I'll take you beyond the Wall. I'll be there for you. I love you. We don't see any of the other kids with Bran, so it's safe to say that none of them have been this heartfelt with Bran. He's so open and so raw with them. And it's just, she's so vicious and evil, the look she's giving him. Seriously, like he's the one that pushed him out of the fucking window.
Yep.
It's horrible. This scene made me hate her. It really did.
Yeah, no, it didn't make me hate her because she's in complete grief and pain, and without condoning her behavior or actions, I kind of understand where she's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
He's a constant reminder of her husband's infidelity.
Mm-hmm. I hate to mention that it's hard to look at things from I know bastards aren't necessarily a thing of honor in that world, but when men go to war, it's not unusual. It's not like they're living in 2015 America and he's living with his bastard son. It's in a world where that is, I hate to say it's accepted, but if Ned Stark wasn't the man that everyone says he is, if he wasn't constantly talked about a man of pure honor, I don't think it would be as big of an issue. I think part of it is Catelyn's like, whoa, you're supposed to be the honorable Ned Stark and you fucked up. I think it adds to the fuel to the flame because bastards aren't really an uncommon thing in this world.
Well, with spoiler, which isn't a big spoiler for those out there, originally Catelyn is supposed to marry Ned's older brother, the heir to Winterfell. And when he dies in the pre-war, she ends up being betrothed to Ned. And she still goes along with it. So that there is also a little bit of a contention, kind of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ned's not even the one that was supposed to marry her in the first place.
Absolutely. So there's a lot of stuff built up here. And she gets in the anger that Ned walks over to her and he says, 17 years ago you came home with another woman's child, and now you leave me again. He says he has no choice, and she says, that's what all men say when honor calls. You have a choice and you fucking made it. He says, Cat, come on. And she goes, no, I can't do it. I can't fucking do it.
She's absolutely right, too. She's absolutely right. If Robert Baratheon is the friend that he says he is, he'd be able to say no to Robert at this point. And I personally don't understand why she can't go with him. Oh, right, Bran. Never mind. But I don't think she was planning on going either in the first place.
No, I don't think so either. Ren Renwood adds, the honorable Ned Stark does nothing. Yeah, he does nothing. He just has to sit there and take it. I agree with you. I think he could say no to Robert. I think he said no to Robert before. It's part of the reason why they didn't talk for a big chunk of time after his rebellion and before the Greyjoy thing. They had problems with some of the decisions Robert made right after, and we'll get into that more because I don't want to.
Oh, well, yeah, no. There's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of reasons why why Ned isn't in King's Landing. That even as someone who's read the books and is caught up with the series, that I don't even know. And nobody really knows for sure the extent of the reasons that he did not stay in King's Landing or take the throne for himself, which is talked about at some points that he could have done also.
But it's safe to say at least that Ned can and will say no to Robert when he has to. And she's right here in the sense that he's choosing to go now. He is choosing to go. This is a decision he is making. Yep. And I think it's a decision based around honor, based around the honor he feels for Robert and something Robert says to him, you helped me get the throne, now allow me to keep it. It's a lot to do with Jon Arryn and a lot to do with his feelings about Jon Arryn dying and being curious about learning more about that situation, especially with the raven that came at the end of last episode from Lysa. With what Lysa said. He is invested now. I think maybe if that raven didn't come, Catelyn had a chance for him to say no, especially if what happened to Bran still happened to Bran. I think Ned might have at that point said, I'm staying here at least for a while. Robert might have said no, but because of the contents of that raven, there's no way he's not protecting Robert. There's no way. He might, once Robert is secure again there, might leave. That might be his plan, to do it for a while, not make it a full-time life commitment as Hand of the King. Other people have stepped down. It's not a job you have to have for life.
Right.
So, and Ren was talking about Catelyn. She's just an evil stepmother. Yeah, she is. Yeah, she is.
Yeah, she is. She's Cinderella's stepmother for sure, without a doubt. Poor Jonderella.
So after this, we get another Robb and Jon goodbye, or Robb and Jon goodbye, or another Robb and Jon scene. Jon asks him if he saw Bran, and he says yes. And Robb says he's not going to die. And Jon responds, Robb, you Starks are hard to kill. And they both smile at each other, which I think is a reference to stuff we talked about last week in the books where they fight each other a lot. And Jon barely ever wins because you Starks are hard to kill. And he says, next time I see, or then he asks him, how was my mother? And Jon fucking straight up lies. Straight up lies, because Rob probably has no fucking concept of the shit that Jon goes through on a day-to-day basis with Catelyn. Because Jon's response is, she was very kind, and he's like, I'm glad to hear that. And there was no look on Rob's face like he didn't believe it. Because Rob...
And that goes to show exactly how much Jon loves his brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
And how much of a good person and Jon really is. He's Absolutely. How much of Ned's kid Jon Stark really is.
Yeah, and you could think about it from the end of Godfather with the Corleones or something, where Rob has some elements of Ned, but he also has this, like, as Ren Renwood was saying, is a little bit more Tully and has this and also has a naivete to him and stuff like that. Jon really, because of growing up as a bastard and dealing with a lot of oppression and a lot of shit he had to deal with, prejudices and just an evil stepmother, really grew strong and really grew a good head on his shoulders and had to claw his way up to confidence. So as he develops, let's watch. I have a feeling, as Joe said, he's going to embody the most of who his father truly was, and that stark honor. So we'll see. Where Rob I see as being just a little naive. Rob seems a little naive to me and a little closeted by Catelyn until you're going to be the Lord of Winterfell. He has a little bit of that lordiness that some of the other characters that we've met that are more dickish about it. People like Viserys and Joffrey, who are like evil or pricky about it, but still have that same, we've been grown and bred for leadership and command. I've been bred to be the new Warden of the North. And Rob comes off a little bit like that.
Yeah.
Walking around like that. So, but he says, next time I'll see you, you'll be in black, all in black to him, and then they hug it out, and they get a real hug, and you see the look on both of their face, and they do one of those two-sided hug moments where you see like both of them really loving each other. It's
And nuzzle their heads and cheeks together.
Yeah, it was a really, really loving moment.
Almost broke out into a Cersei Jaime moment.
It could have. I'm sure there's somebody that's done some fan-made video where it turns into porn music right there in slow motion. Bareback Winterfell. Oh, you said Brokeback. I said Bareback Winterfell. That too. That's the sequel. So as we see this King's Cruise start to hike out, Ned and Jon say their goodbyes. And Ned says to him, there's a great honor at the Night's Watch. Stark men have served the Night's Watch well. And he goes, you are Stark. You have my blood, not my name, but you are Stark. And Ned leaves for King's Landing. I want to say that again. You have my blood, but not my name, but you are Stark. As Ned leaves for King's Landing, him and Jon leaves for the Wall. Jon says to him, is my mother still alive?
Tell me something. Tell me anything.
Yeah, does she know where I'm going? Does she know anything? And he doesn't answer that question, but he says, I promise you the next time we see each other, I will tell you about your mother. He doesn't make any reference to anything that... I just want to point all this out. He doesn't make any reference to anything that Jon Snow... any question that Jon Snow asked there. He just says to him, next time I see you, I will tell you about your mother. So, I don't know. There's some hinky shit going on there. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Shit. Vaughn 2300 says Jon has a thicker skin, and he does. He has a much thicker skin than any of the Stark kids.
Jon should have hit the reins and then rode back the next day and said, okay, hey, how you doing?
I'm back. I decided to come to King's Landing with you instead and be your steward. Hi.
So, tell me about her.
Tell me about my mother. And that would have been interesting. Yeah, and yeah, Jon does have a thicker skin than any of his brothers or sisters. I think Arya probably next, and then Rob. Or actually, I don't know about Rob, but yeah, then probably Rob. It's going to be interesting to see how the fall, because Bran wakes up at the end of this episode. It's going to be interesting to see how the fall affects Bran, because he might end up being one of the thicker-skinned Starks as well by when he really takes in what's happened to him. And
oh God, when he tells everybody what happened.
Yeah, because you got to figure that's going to be the first thing he does, right? When he wakes up, he's immediately going to tell everybody what happened. Oh gosh. So as Ned sails off and rides off, and John rides in his direction, we get the Game of Thrones theme song in the
Dun,
score.
dun, 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 dun. Oh wait, that's not it.
That's the Robert Vitello Orchestra. Dun, 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 dun. And then we get a scene with Robert and Ned, which is a really cool scene, which lets you in on even more of their friendship. I love Robert and Ned together. They're just such almost a comic duo without trying to be it, because Robert's just so rah, 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 rah. And you can tell he's always been this way his whole life. He's just this the type of guy. Yeah, rah. And Ned's so stoic and such a straight man.
Yep.
And Robert says he wishes they could just keep going on the Kingsroad. And Ned says, me too. He says, yeah, just keep going, you and me, all alone. And Ned says, you should have got to me 20 years ago. And they talk a little bit about John's mom, and he talks about what's your bastard son's mother's name? Was her name Bessie? You know, Bessie with the big tits. God bless Bessie and her tits. And Robert just keeps talking, but he keeps talking about former girls of himself. He's like, yeah, and that other girl, but no, she was mine too, Becca. Oh, that was mine, Becca with the ass and Bessie with the tits. And Ned says her name was Wyla, I believe it was. But he'll never speak of her. And Robert says, you've never spoken of her. And Ned goes, and I never will.
Yep. You never told me what she was like.
Never told me what she was like. Exactly. The woman that got the Honorable Ned Stark to break his vows. Who must have been some kind of whore, he said, or must have been some kind of wench. But you never told me about her. Well,
yeah.
And Ned says, as we just said, Ned's response was, and I never will. And that's
some things are, you may be my best friend, but I'm not telling you. Just you'll never know.
Vaughn adds, even though he has learned a couple of things the hard way later on, Jon has more of a sense to earn everything he has. 100%. Excellent point, Vaughn. And he says he looks in the scene when him and Ned are talking. He looks on. The look on Ned's face when Jon asks the question says it all. And then this carries on to this scene, too. The look on Ned's face when Robert's probing, and that might be what you were talking about. I'm not sure with the delay. The look on Ned's face when Robert's probing is even more scary. Like, he just doesn't want to deal with this. He can't believe Robert still remembers this. With all the shit Robert's forgotten, you're still talking about this? Shut the fuck up, Robert. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah. He just wants to forget it. Like he's got his kid.
Yeah.
And he's not with that woman. He took the kid from that woman.
And Robert's response is if you know what's awful is you don't want me to be talking about this. It makes you very uncomfortable, huh? I have a feeling if I wasn't your king, you'd get up and beat the shit out of me already. And
yep.
He says hit, and Ned goes, that's the worst part of you becoming king. I can never beat the shit out of you anymore, ever again.
Well, I think I don't think Robert Baratheon, even though if anybody else struck him or fought with him or rolled around on the floor and exchanged blows with him, anyone else would lose his head. Ned would not.
The problem isn't Robert. The problem is everybody else.
Right, because you can't. Well, he wouldn't lose his head. He'd be locked up forever.
Right. He'd be locked up forever.
Or at least for a long period of time.
But you got to figure that Ned would be smart enough if he was going to hit Robert to do it in private when it was just the two of them alone.
Oh, of course it would be just the two of them alone. It would never happen in public, at the very least he would send them to the wall. Anybody else would lose their head no matter what. Ned could go to the wall.
And to be fair about this as well, it's mentioned a bunch of times, and even more so, again, in the books and this type of stuff. Ned is not the warrior in his family. His older brother was the best fighter in the family. Ned's a pretty good fighter, but Robert at his prime was probably top 2 or 3 in the entire realm.
No, I think that Ned, although Ned was not the warrior of his family, I think he was very much so Robert's rival. Only Robert, when they were younger, was a hulking man. He was
Robert's a badass. Robert was one of the best fighters in the entire realm. Even people like Barristan at one point, when he talked about
his strength was unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
Like, he was very much like, if there was anybody that could have been considered a rival to what the Mountain is, it would have been Robert Baratheon.
Right, exactly.
And we'll learn about the Mountain later, but
With the same thing that he had the speed as well. That he wasn't just strong, he had incredible speed and strength to combine. I'm just saying that
against Robert Baratheon and his hammer.
this is probably the first time that the two of them have been around where Ned knows for a fact he could beat the shit out of Robert. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. This is the first time that they've been interacting that I think Ned's super confident that he would get the better of Robert right now. There's no way Robert would stand a chance fighting Ned right now.
Correct.
At this moment right now. And thank you, Ren Renwood, for the name. Wyla was the name he said. So finally, Robert gets down to business. He has another agenda here. He wants to talk about a message he received about Daenerys Targaryen's marital status, that she checked her Facebook status from being single to being in a relationship, or being married. I was going to say being married, and it's complicated. So Ned's like, what, should we send her a present for her and her horse lord? And Robert's like, a knife, a sharp one. And this ignites Robert. He just goes on this rant about the Targaryens and about how she's going to get married and start spitting out Targaryen children, and there's going to be a problem. And you know what? I agree with him. I agree with Robert 100% in this scene that I don't condone killing children, but the fact of, like, if Daenerys starts spitting out fucking Targaryen children, that's going to be a problem for Robert's heirs. That's going to definitely be a problem.
No matter what, kingdoms come and go, and I don't see it really as that big of a problem.
Immediate.
It's not an immediate threat, and in fact, what his problem is over the last 18 years, he should have been replacing families as lords. Quietly, one by one a year, take out a family, take out another family, take out another, until you have complete loyalty of everybody from head to toe in the kingdom. And therefore, there's nobody left that's loyal to the Targaryens. Everybody loves the Baratheon. Baratheons made everybody money, made everybody lords of these places throughout old...
But Joe, people still call me a usurper, and if that woman and her horse lord cross the ocean, they'll join up the banners with them, and then we fucking got a problem.
And that's the point. Over the last 18 years, he should have been replacing those banners. He should have been replacing them with people who don't call him usurper behind his back or in front.
And then he continues that these Targaryens killed your family, they killed my would-be wife, and I'm going to kill every Targaryen, he repeats. And Ned taunts his ass with, I guess this is one Targaryen you can't get at.
And so this is my point, like, how, like, really it was that secret for 18 years, this fucking Viserys running around entitled as he is, they've been able to keep it quiet, that they haven't been sitting and toast across the narrow sea this time.
Joe, you're absolutely right, because that's my biggest problem with Robert here. Why is he only worrying about this now? If he really wanted to kill kids and didn't give a shit, why didn't he send someone over with a blade? Why didn't he send Barristan over there with a fucking crew of knights?
And I think it was Jon Arryn kept telling him not to. It was Jon Arryn's voice of reason saying it doesn't matter.
Don't kill them. And maybe, for whatever it's worth, if he was going to freak out about this...
Say that again?
I was going to say, if he's going to freak out about this, he should have been strong, but you're right. Robert, as strong as he was, could also be manipulated.
Right. He's not the smartest. He's the brute warrior, correct.
Exactly.
And like it's talked about later, it could have been Ned that took the throne instead of Robert Baratheon.
Now, Ned, who really doesn't believe in killing children, this is what it's really about. Ned reminds them that they're just children and that there's an ocean, and that, we talked about this earlier, not 100,000 Dothraki, not 1,000,000 could be a threat to the realm. They do not have a fleet, Robert. I love how he said that too.
They won't be able to get them across the narrow sea. There's no way. And then they also believe that where horses won't go, Dothraki won't go, and horses don't go near salt water. They don't. Yeah. If they don't drink it, if they don't drink the water, Dothraki won't touch the water or something. Yeah, something weird like that. Some weird.
Well, just horses in general don't like being.
That's it too.
Yeah, this isn't. They're not going to build Noah's Ark for the Dothraki horde, where they they put 2x2, get all the 100,000 horses on the boat. And Ned keeps going, and he says, I don't care if there's a million. This hypothetical Dothraki horde is nothing. And if there was a million of them, we'd knock their ass back into the ocean because they wouldn't know. They wouldn't have their sea legs. They suddenly would be looking for horses. So we'd come out with the horses and slice these bitches down.
And heavily armored. They're unarmored. It's they'd be attacking walled cities in a lot of places. Like,
and I guess it's a similar concern that you would have. God, I don't want to spoil something later. It's a similar concern you might have if what the Night's Watch is probably protecting from wildlings and stuff, smaller hordes of wildlings crossing over and causing minor skirmishes and minor problems. It wouldn't be that big of a problem when it really came down to it. I think not for King's Landing to withstand. But Robert does say a war is coming, Ned. I don't know who with, but it's coming.
Everyone.
That's like saying the night's coming, guys. Come on, you know, Robert. Come on, war's coming. So
I don't know when, I don't know how.
yeah, but somewhere that sun is going down.
Speaking of Dothraki, we go back to the grasslands where Drogo is bending Daenerys over horsey style every night, and she doesn't look like she's having fun until she catches a glimpse of a candle while he's doing his thing, and she sees like a vision or starts looking at the candle, and she gets a smile on her face.
Oh, she completely dissociates. She is no longer going to be. Is she both purposefully and because she snapped? She's no longer going to be that little girl. She's going to do everything she can to empower herself. You know, she's completely out of the situation now. You know.
Renwood adds, Robert has sent out assassins, but they were not very good ones. That's very true. Very true. So we continue, and we cut back over to the wall, to Jon at the wall, or Jon and Tyrion discussing the falling standards of what the Night's Watch has become as they're hiked to the wall. Now, Joe talked about this earlier, so I'm going to yada yada this a bit. Most of the people that are in the Watch at this point are thieves, rapists, and scum. And Tyrion goes into it about most of them get a choice of castration or joining the wall. Most of them take the knife. Great thing about the Watch, though, and he calls them out straight in this, you ditch your family and you get a new one. And Jon and Tyrion, and he responds to Tyrion, why do you read so much, dwarf? And he says, look at me and what you see. Look at me. And he goes, I'm a dwarf. I was born of another family, I would have been killed, but I'm a Lannister of Casterly Rock. Life is full of these ironies. And my brother has his sword, I have my books. And a mine needs books like a sword
needs sharpening. A whetstone.
Whetstone. So that is basically why I read Jon Snow.
I love the exchange. I love every exchange with Tyrion Lannister. They're great.
Absolutely, especially him and Jon. And then Jon gets into he says, yes, you're a Lannister, and Tyrion mentions that his father was Hand of the King, and Jon says, yes, and your brother was a Night's Guard that killed that king. And he goes, yep, and my sister married the new king, and my repulsive nephew will be the new king, so I do my best.
Yeah. And yeah, you can really see Tyrion is of no illusions as to who his family is.
Absolutely.
And what kind of people they are.
And then
you really get the feeling that he's not one of them.
And Tyrion's kind of making fun of him here, saying, listen, Jon Snow, I know you have nothing. You're a bastard with nothing to lose or gain, but you're going to go fight the wall. From what things? And Jon's like, there's many things to protect. And he goes, oh, what, goblins and grunts and snooks and monsters? You're a smart boy. You don't believe in that nonsense. And Jon looks at him like, you don't know, because I get a feeling that the man that they all saw that Ned killed in the first episode put a little bit of a chill in all the Starks. All the Starks feel like winter's coming a little bit. And
well, here's the thing, too. If you're not from the North, the stories you've heard about the things from the North are just stories. If you're from the North, they're not just stories, but they're tied to families, a lot of these stories.
Right.
And you've seen the fucking wall. And after having seen the wall, you know that there's probably
something to protect.
some validity to something being talked about.
Big danger.
Right. Like, this is not a natural occurring object. This is big, like Katie's, big wall for big danger.
Yep, and Tyrion calls him how you're a bastard with nothing to inherit, and you're trying to earn honor by forging your own path. I get it, and he's mocking him a lot with the whole situation, and he just doesn't buy it. And to Tyrion, this is all just a fucking joke, and he's again in the same way Jaime is trying to make sure Jon knows what he's getting himself into. And I love the two of them together with the bastard and the dwarf interacting. Renwood adds, Robert is such a pussy now. Before he would have relished the fight. Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
And Vaughn says, Drogo walks in there and in the Mortal Kombat voice he goes, "Get over here!"
Scorpions are with his 4-foot-long penis from across the tent.
And then just starts raping her.
With his braid, yeah.
And so Jon and Tyrion continue on their journey to the wall. In Winterfell, we see Catelyn continuing her vigil over Bran, and she starts getting called out on all the duties she's like just skipping out on. She doesn't give a shit about the bills from the King's Stay. She doesn't care. They'll wait. They gotta wait. But Robb really steps up here, and he says he'll do it all. Talk to you in the AM.
And this is exactly why Meister did that. He did it not to make Catelyn snap out of it. He did it to get Robb to step up. The smile that comes across his face is just like, "Yep, plan worked."
Plan worked. Yeah.
You know, Catelyn will be no good for a while, but at least we can get Robb to step up and start taking on some of the Lord duties because he's now the new Lord of Winterfell.
Absolutely.
With Ned gone down to, or is the acting Lord of Winterfell? So.
I agree with you 100%. I think it was such a smart play by that guy. He knew his young lord very well and knew how to manipulate him.
Yeah, I'm gonna go pressure the mother, and he'll step up to protect his mother and come do lordly shit that he's got to do.
So Robb gets in Catelyn's face, and
the whole time that you hear these wolves howling outside, like Bran's lying in bed, and at the beginning of the scene, the wolves are howling outside, and in the middle of the scene, they're talking through Robb and Castellan's exchange. The wolves are still howling.
And he's giving her shit. He's like, "Get off your ass. He's not going to die. Get out. Rickon is 6. He keeps following me around."
You gotta be there for your living son just as much as for your not living son, but your conscious children as much as your unconscious child.
And then Robb spots out of the corner of his eye a fire somewhere.
She tells him to go shut those dogs up. Shut those fucking dogs up.
And then he looks and sees a fire in the castle.
Yep.
I have a fire somewhere, and he rushes away, leaving the window wide open to make sure she keeps hearing the howls.
And the door open too.
Yep. So while he's gone, a very creepy
She runs
man.
over to look out the window to see the fire.
And this like creepy man comes in the room with a huge blade, and he goes, "You're not supposed to be here. No one's supposed to be here.
It's supposed to be a mercy."
Yeah, he basically just literally says, "I'm here to kill Bran."
Yeah.
And they get into a little fight, and Catelyn gets her hand cut.
She's holding her own too against this guy. She claws his face open. Then he gets behind her, puts the he pulls out this dagger too, which is a really nice looking dagger for a
huge.
And it's huge. It's fancy. It's got gold in it and friggin' gems encrusted on it and shit. Like, it's a pretty fancy dagger for a shitbum looking assassin that he looks like.
Yep.
He's like not even like pimped up in assassin wear or whatever like that would look like in Westeros, but like he just looks like a homeless guy, with this like really nice looking dagger.
And she tries her best, but eventually just gets knocked down to the ground. She's about to be able to basically do nothing, and who comes out of nowhere? Summer.
Well, he's got the dagger to her throat, and it's like he's digging through her hands. Her hands are completely sliced up. She's bleeding incredibly from her hands. Ugh.
And Summer, Bran's direwolf, comes out of nowhere and jumps up and slashes and bites his throat and cuts his throat right open. And then Summer jumps right up in the bed with Bran and snuggles up. And
snuggles
Catelyn,
into his face to face, and then like does like a little circle thing and lays down next to him and looks at Catelyn.
and Catelyn just smiles like, thank God for these pups.
Oh, and here's the thing too. This pup is significantly bigger than the last time we saw these pups. Like, at least it's laying down along Bran's side, and it's pretty much the length of Bran at this point. And then it pans over to the bed, to the body on the floor, and it just shows this completely torn out neck of this assassin guy laying on the ground with this pool of blood like slowly bubbling out of his neck. It's really good. Really good makeup and work. Yeah, and then the innocent puppy face with the blood all around his mouth looks at Catelyn.
I did good right.
I started crying. I actually teared up. I was like, "Oh my fucking god, that puppy's so awesome! I want one."
Oh, such a cute puppy.
Oh.
So back on the Dothraki Sea for a little bit. I'm going to yada this section a little bit because it's just whatever.
Well, watching through it the first time, the second time, the third time, and the fourth time, I have to say each and every time, even reading the books, and I know this isn't maybe the opinion of everybody, but I know some people out there share my opinion, the Daenerys shit is very fucking boring.
Yeah, that's why I'm so gonna yada over this. So Daenerys.
It turns out when you keep watching, because I hope you all will, do not let that deter you because I say the Daenerys shit is boring. It does not stay boring. It gets quite interesting and fun. So
No, you maybe.
it has peaks and valleys, correct. But there's a lot of good Daenerys stuff.
I don't want to get too into that, okay? Because I disagree with that statement. I don't ever find Daenerys' stuff too interesting.
And see, okay.
Especially not in the books. On the show, I think it's good. Some of it's good, but in the books, I'm constantly rolling my eyes at Daenerys sections. But that's just me. So
You know what? That's probably because George R. R. Martin does such a great job writing the 13, 14-year-old girl that she's supposed to be. You know, and that's what you got to remember too through a lot of these scenes. They made these characters older than they are in the books because it's not going to come across. It doesn't come across good now the way Drogo is treating his wife, but it's going to come across even worse when he's doing it to a 13-year-old girl.
George R. R. Martin's reasoning or his response to that is the opposite. Is that he said I made them too young in the books.
Well, I don't think he made them too young in the books. I think he did what he was thinking he was doing.
He feels like he did. I'm saying.
Well, it's a different time, and not a lot of people live that long, and with all the wars that happen.
Because he planned to do a time jump.
Oh, okay.
He had planned to do it. He had planned to have a couple of books happen, and then have a big time jump, and then have the books take place. The second half of the story take place, and he changed that plan.
I like it better. I liked it better with them all young, even though that sounds kind of creepy and disgusting. If it kind of, in my mind, fit what, if people average life was 30 or 40. That's kind of
for a section I want to yada on. We're spending way too much time talking about Dany before we talk about Dany. So let's get into this. And yes, Lewin, Maester Lewin. So on the Dothraki Sea, Daenerys is cut and scraped from getting raped by Drogo too much. They trade stories about where dragons came from. They're extinct. Brave men killed them. It is known. And one man said the dragon's full of the moon when he's in bed, because when he comes, he talks about dragons or the moon. So Daenerys tells the other two girls to get the fuck out.
Right, because they laugh at her. They're like, hee, it's known. You don't know this? You're kind of,
And she says, I don't give a fuck about that stuff. How do you get men to tell you shit in bed? And she says, you get on top and you pleasure the guy, and if you have a lot of practice,
just to tell you shit. How do you make them happy? I don't understand
right,
this.
But basically, I'm trying to sum this up quickly.
I know.
Basically tells her to get on top and pleasure the guy. We don't have to get too much into the details of Daenerys' sex life here. So
how can I stop getting raped and make this more like what it's supposed to be like?
Exactly. Let's sum this up here, because I don't care about the details. The hooker says she was 9 when she first joined the hooker house, but didn't touch people for 3 years. Thank goodness she was only 12 when she started hooking up with people.
Well, and Cersei makes that clear too. Back at Winterfell, are you bleeding yet?
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Childbearing years.
Because I'm gonna skip over the scene when we get to it next. The next scene that the two of them have, we see the hooker on top of Daenerys teaching her how to ride somebody.
Woohoo! Which is fantastic, and it should be watched in slow motion and replay many times for all those watching out there.
Uh,
Even if you're going to get that look and sound from your girlfriend.
I'm I'm sorry, Rachel. I agree with you 100%. I don't know why I'm apologizing for agreeing with you. I just find Danny annoying for some reason, so none of her scenes really interest me. Rachel, you and me have very common ground on that point.
I really felt that way most of it. There were some things they started to that I really like in the future, but
Me
it's
too.
very few and far between the stuff that I like with Danny, and I'm just really interested in where they're finally going to get to with Danny, and that's what kept me interested enough because of the hope for something better.
I hear you. I just hope we don't ultimately get wasted potential with her when it's all said and done.
Right. There's been such a build-up with her through the books and the series over time for anybody who's invested in that character or has suffered that character, there has got to be some sort of great fucking payoff.
Yeah.
Because if it ends, never mind.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. We move on. See, that's why I'm cutting things and moving around because we're gonna end up slipping stuff that we don't want to slip. So we go to Jon and Benjen and Tyrion seeing the wall for the first time, and Jon is in awe as Benjen says, "Here's the wall," and Tyrion just looks up and goes, "I can't wait to piss off of it." I mean, that's just the look on his face. It's like, wow, that's gonna be a hell of a piss.
No, I also think that
No, he's amazed by it.
yeah, what's going through Tyrion, he's read so much about this wall. He's the only one in that family that's even got an interest. He's been wanting to see the wall his whole life.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of half kidding. Oh, the sun's shining through on me.
You know, for all intents and purposes, this is one of the smallest people in the kingdom looking up at the biggest man-made structure in the world.
Absolutely. No, it's probably pretty intense. So we go back to Winterfell, and Catelyn's having her hands bandaged, and she's visiting the tower where Bran fell. And she's looking around, and she finds a single blonde hair. Very interesting.
Yeah, and I just find that a little strange too. That she's up there snooping around. Like it couldn't have just been him slipping and falling. Like I've been telling him I don't want him climbing for years in the first place. Like
in fairness, Joe, the assassin coming in and trying to kill.
Oh, right. No, but even the assassin is like, it's supposed to be a mercy.
I know, but it comes off as a little weird that it almost, if that happened too, I'd look at it again. If I was in that situation,
It is suspicious. And then that dagger on top of it, pretty dagger.
Who hires an assassin
to kill a little boy, to put a little boy out of his misery? Right, no. That survived a fall that might even come out of it just fine.
Absolutely. I guess we're going in and out a little bit again, so I'm adjusting signal. Hopefully that will help Ren. Let me know. And Vaughn says, "Yet the reverse dragon position." Teaching her about. Absolutely. Sorry, I think part of it is doing this during the day rather than night. There's more people in my neighborhood using internet, so some of my bandwidth is getting sucked right now. So I apologize if some of the signal is going in and out at times, guys. So there will be an audio version of this that's being recorded as a hard line that will be available via the iTunes feed. So if any of this is unlistenable during the YouTube video and you want to listen to a cleaner, clearer audio version of it, you can always check out the iTunes and the Stitcher's audio feed.
Yeah, please. Great to listen to in your car on the way to work.
Absolutely. You can take us with you. So she calls a council in the Godswood at Winterfell herself. Roderick, Master Lewin, and Theon and Robb, and she talks about her theory about she doesn't think he fell. She thinks, and Lewin says, yeah, he was always sure-footed. Someone tried to kill him twice. She feels she just put two and two together here, and she thinks Bran saw something he wasn't meant to see, and that someone pushed him, and she'll bet her life that the Lannisters had something to do with it.
Right, and of course, it's also because of that letter she gets from her sister.
I forgot about the letter she got from her sister as well. And
so she's very suspicious of the Lannisters.
They talk about the blade being a Valyrian steel dagger, and immediately, just like killing dogs, Theon's ready to go. Theon is like, blah, 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 blah. I'm ready to kill now. Robb, I'm with you. Let's go kill people. Ah.
And to make it clear, the Valyrian steel part is Valyrian steel is very rare. It's steel that was made in old Valeria, forged in old Valeria. These weapons are very, very old, thousands of years old. Old money weaponry. Not every lord has one. Like the fact that someone would give away uh,
A dagger, a
a
Valerian
dagger,
Yeah, for whatever purpose.
for whatever purpose, like, or that this guy would have such an expensive dagger is kind of strange.
Hinky.
Yep. It's very hinky. And Rob and Theon are ready to fight, and Master Lewin says, "Wait, is there going to be a battle in the woods? Calm down, guys. Come on. Ned needs to find out about this, so someone needs to go tell Ned, and he needs to be the one that makes the decision of what happens next." Now,
Can I just stop right here for a second as a sidebar to episode 2 of the Telltale Games?
Mm-hmm.
It's fun how that ends in a similar kind of conversation in the woods. Or is that the previews for next time? A similar conversation in the woods.
If I remember correctly, I think it's previews from next week.
Check out that game, everybody. It's fucking awesome.
Absolutely, it's really
Extra
fun.
chapters to the story that you love.
Yeah, especially only if you're caught up, because there are some spoilers right in the first episode about future events.
Oh yeah. Huge spoilers in that game if you're not caught up with the series of the books.
Absolutely. So Catelyn decides instead of Rob going, because there always must be a Stark in Winterfell, even though Rickon and Bran are still there, even though Bran's in a coma, but they're both still there. So if Rob went, there still would be a Stark in Winterfell. But whatever. There always must be a Stark in Winterfell. So she goes to ride to King's Landing with Sir Roderick Castle, who decides to come with her because they don't want to send a whole big party, because they don't want this to be on the radar of anybody, her showing up. She wants this to be a kind of a private conversation. So she leaves Winterfell in Rob's hands and Bran's life in the hands of the gods.
Roderick, he's like the master at arms of Winterfell. He's like the warrior that trains the kids how to fight and all that. Like he's Rob's Ned's right hand man.
Absolutely.
Meister.
Now she says she spent a month on her duties as mother, and that's enough time. And then she hangs a wreath of wood for the old gods on his bed, and she says goodbye to Bran. So we briefly cut back over to Dany with her sex training. We already talked about this scene, and it eventually goes to Daenerys as at the table. In her hut waiting for Drogo to come in. Now Drogo comes in after the day of killing and raping and maiming, and he wants to rape his home slice. And he comes in and does the get over here and grabs her to bend her over, but she says no, and kind of.
He's not having it at first. He's like trying to still do like the rapey thing.
Because he thinks she's trying to refute any action, but then once he realizes that she goes, no, tonight I will look. She speaks in his language. Tonight I will look at your face. Or does she speak in Dothraki there?
Yes, she does.
She says, tonight I'll look at your face.
That's when he kind of is like, oh.
Okay. What's that?
Yeah, because now she's not just a pretty little girl. She's also smart enough to learn their language. He hasn't learned any bit of her language.
Except for no.
Except for, I think that's pretty much no in every language is no.
No. And spoiler alert, he eventually learns the word lands.
Yeah.
Lads. That's one of my favorite Drogo lines in the whole series.
And crown.
Mean.
Has your crown.
Crown. You crown. Yeah, he learns crown too. So.
No, but and so then he becomes into it. He's all of a sudden now he's intrigued at what she's trying to tell him.
Yeah, my notes I wrote Mikey likes it. And it's because at first he's like wait, Mikey likes it. And they truly, like really truly, this starts their love affair. This is the moment that starts what turns into it's not a big spoiler. It turns into this is the starting point of their marriage.
Yeah, this is of an actual marriage.
Of an actual marriage, of her enjoying it, because you can see in the moment, not only is she showing him pleasure, they're connecting. he holds her close. He gets the face close to her because he does. At first, he lets her do her thing, just her. But eventually, when he realizes what's happening and he feels a closeness, he gets up and he grabs her and he brings her face as close as probably anyone's face has ever been to Khal Drogo, without him killing them. And he gets really close to her, and she feels the love. I think that's where their love is born in that moment.
You're absolutely right, Ren. That's why anybody's interested.
Yeah, absolutely.
Her dragons.
Her dragons, yeah.
Oh!
Whoops.
Spoiler.
Whoops. But I'm sorry. It's a spoiler, but when it really comes down to it...
Her dragon eggs.
Her dragon eggs. She got the dragon eggs already. Come on.
Yeah, there's a reason. They keep showing them. They've shown them in the corner a couple times during the...
Yeah, I'm sorry. Like, let's just take... Joe... I really hope those dragon eggs hatch one day.
Oh, yeah. Wouldn't that be something? Well, dragons have been extinct from the world for so long, and those are more stone than egg now, so right?
They're like gobstoppers. They're more like giant dinosaur egg gobstoppers. There's no way nothing's ever going to happen with that.
No,
Nothing. So yeah, they touch each other, but those eggs are very interesting. Yes, exactly. So she holds her close, and they like it. So we get back to the king's procession, and they stopped at the inn at the crossroads. And Sansa takes the opportunity to wander with her direwolf lady, who, before we get into anything else that happens to Lady in this episode, I want to be clear about something. No dogs were harmed in this episode's filming. And also, Sophia Turner loved her direwolf so much that after this episode was over, she adopted it, and she actually has this direwolf at her house as her own personal pet.
Aww.
So it's just worth mentioning, about considering everything that happens here, that it does have a happy bow at the end, that the real pup is Sansa's real dog, so she kept it. I think that's really cool. When I heard her talking about it, she says it's not a very interesting dog. It just lays around all the time. It's not very direwolf-like.
Sounds like a dog.
Not ripping any throats out. Damn it!
Yeah, not ripping anyone's throats out. And we also did mention this before, but I want to say it again. She was just recently cast in X-Men Apocalypse as the young Jean Grey, so the new Jean Grey. So it's very big casting for her.
Am I the only person that doesn't find Jean Grey interesting at all?
When that movie comes out, we'll absolutely do a review on that. She's not one of my favorite X-Men either.
As an X-Men, she's kind of boring and flat. As a Phoenix, it's like, really?
Let's not stray too far, but without going too far down that road, I'm not in complete opposition with you on that. I do find Phoenix infinitely more interesting than Jean Grey.
Yes, thank you.
But whatever. Still, I feel like she's overhyped in the universe. I'm more of a fan of Storm and of comic book Rogue than Jean Grey, partially because I grew up with the cartoon. But again, I don't want to get too much into the X-Men pit.
Okay.
So the King's procession's there, and Sansa's wandering off with her direwolf. Now she runs into Ilan Payne first, which really freaks her out, and then the Hound comes out and talks about who has no lines because the King cut out his tongue. Then she's trapped between him and the Hound, and it's hard to see who frightens her more. And then guess what? Prince Joffrey comes to the rescue. It's like, oh my God, you're just triple fucked. But Joffrey seems like an okay guy, like I said.
But Ilan Payne doesn't say much, does he?
Does he? Yeah. Does the Hound scare you? Go, be off with you, dog. Which again, he probably shouldn't have let the prince send him off like that. If he was truly...
Well, now he's got a peacock for his girl.
Yeah, it's true. But I'm saying, like,
what's he gonna try to get a piece while the Hound's staring over his shoulder?
But it's a walk. I guess if I was truly somebody's bodyguard, if I was doing that job, even if they told me that in that situation, I go, I don't answer to you. I answer to the King, and I'm following your ass around. Shut up. And
I'm sure the Hound was in a bush.
Yeah, which makes sense to what happens later in the episode when he runs the butcher's boy down, because he probably saw most of the situation. He was drinking while he was watching Joffrey get his ass kicked by Arya.
And he can't let the butcher boy tell that story.
Yeah, he can't let anyone tell that story. So let's get to it. He takes her on a walk down the river, and he feeds her wine and tells her she can drink as much as... He gives her the Bill Cosby treatment, just keeps handing her wine.
Because I'm only allowed to have one glass. He says, my queen princess is allowed to drink whatever the fuck she wants.
Yeah, and you know what? he's feeding her wine, trying to get her drunk and take advantage of her, doing that.
Oh, dude, he comes across like a complete sleaze
Yeah, I was just
ass.
gonna say he's coming back. He comes off as a total dick in this situation. Everything I've said about him before, like this, he's kind of jerky, huh?
He
He's
comes
like,
across exactly like the Karate Kid bad guy, Johnny.
Johnny Lawrence.
He comes like exactly like he could have played that role perfectly too.
Billy Zabka. You think Billy Zabka could have
Billy
played
Zabka, yeah.
Joffrey when he was younger? You know, if this was a different generation, would he have played Joffrey in the '80s? If Game of Thrones came out in the '80s? So
I
he's
wonder if Joffrey gets his ass kicked like Billy Zappa did.
I sure hope, and he does. But because we see Arya and her friend fighting with practice swords, and Sansa goes, "That's Arya. What are you doing?" And Sansa, totally a little drunk, starts being a douchebag to her sister. "Oh, what are you doing?" And so Joffrey, seeing this, kind of takes the opportunity to bully the butcher's boy with a real sword. He goes, "Pick up your sword, fight me." He goes, "Well, I have a practice sword. You have a real sword." And Arya's like, he's not just a little. He's not a nobody. He's Micah, and he's my friend. He's not just the son of the butchers. So he has a stick against Joffrey's real sword. So and he basically does the right thing. This kid Micah definitely does everything right in this situation, or at least I think if Joffrey was a reasonable human being. And he's just like, "I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. You know, I'm not going to fight you. You have a real sword." And Joffrey goes, "I'm not going to hurt him much," and starts cutting his cheek with the blade and like sticking the blade up against his cheek. And the kid, in his defense, I don't think Joffrey was going to kill him. He was just going to maim him. And I think the kid almost accepts it at this point and just sits there to take it. But Arya doesn't take it. Fuck no, Arya doesn't take it. And she fucking hits him with a wooden sword in the leg, kicks him, knocks him down, takes his sword, throws his sword
Throws
in the
it
river.
right in the river.
Actually, but first she takes the sword and has a moment where she makes eye contact with him, like, "I could kill you."
And he knows, he starts begging and screaming, "Please don't, please don't." He's holding his arm. I'm sorry, oh, don't hurt me.
And then she throws the sword in the water and she runs off because Arya's smart enough to know that this means probably the end of her pup. Like, her pup's going to get killed after all of this. And Sansa goes over to comfort Joffrey, and he just turns into a total fucking asshole douchebag motherfucker. And he's like,
"Leave me alone."
Let's try that one more time together, Joe, because that was really awesome. 1, 2, 3. That's what Joffrey does. Like a little fucking asshole. Like the British would call him a fucking cunt. He just acts like a fucking cunt. Sorry for the horrible British accent, but
A little fuckface.
a little fucking fuckface, really. And everything I said earlier about maybe this guy's redeemable, this guy's just coming off like a dick.
Yeah.
I hope someone fucking stabs him in the fucking throat. So Sansa tries comforting him, but it doesn't work. Arya, knowing that Nymeria's head's going to be fucked for this, runs out and does that old television animal thing where you have to let the animal go and you say go away, but the animal won't go, so you eventually have to throw a rock at it to make it go away.
Yep, white fanged him.
White fanged him. Thank you, Katie and Joe. It was really sad. And it's past nightfall, and Arya's finally, and we see Ned Stark looking for Arya. We hear people shouting her name, and someone comes up to Ned and goes, "Oh, she's been found. She got brought right before the Queen." And Ned's pissed off. He's
Why
like, "What
didn't
the
you
mean?"
bring me my daughter first? This is bullshit. Question
Yep,
my
and-
daughter without me.
And Robert says, I just wanted to handle this, get this, taken care of as quickly as possible." And Cersei starts just barking.
I'm Cersei Lannister. Go fuck yourself. Let's
And
go.
you definitely get the feeling like Robert's like, "Yeah, I know, Ned, you're absolutely right. I'm so sorry about that." Because Ned is speaking like nobody would ever speak to a king.
Right, absolutely.
And
Cersei's
basically, Robert Baratheon kind of says, "It's
Yeah, because Cersei, when it really comes down to it, Cersei's almost doing her response to Ned talking this way is exactly what you're saying. She's like, "You can't talk to your king like this," and Rob's like, "Yeah, he can." Robert's like,
he's the hand of the king. He's
You
the
can
only
talk-
person that's allowed to talk to me like this, and he's my, he should be my brother-in-law. You stupid cunt! Shut up.
yeah, and
You can't talk to him like this."
we get down to this a little bit later in the scene, but Robert's really thinking, about Joffrey. I don't care what the story is. You let a little girl disarm you, and you're my fucking son. Fuck you. You're such a disappointment. You're such a disappointment right now. And so that's really
about that.
That's the only thing he's pissed about, really, when it comes down to it. He doesn't care.
And he knows it's all lies. He knows he knows who his son is for the most part. You know, he knows it's lies what he's hearing.
Yeah, Joffrey and Cersei's story is that the two, Arya and the little boy, beat Joffrey with sticks and then threw his sword into the water. That's their story, and they're sticking to it. And Arya says agrees that the wolf did bite him, but just bit him a little, didn't really maim him. It's just a little bite. And then Robert says, I'm going to call your other daughter because you say one thing, you say the other thing, so we're going to have an indiscriminate point of view from...
Oh, Sansa fucking hates Arya.
And they bring her in, and in fairness, Sansa doesn't help out at all. She fucking says, I don't recall. I plead the fifth.
She lies.
She pleads the fifth, essentially, but she just goes...
And I don't want to say she gets what she deserves, because... The animal certainly doesn't deserve it, but you know, she should. If she had spoken the truth, but everybody would have been fine except for Joffrey, her prince.
Right. So Arya's response to this is to start pulling her hair and beating the shit out of her. She's like, "What the fuck?" She seriously just beats the fucking shit out of her from behind until they break her.
Arya's my favorite character by far.
Which Cersei loves. She's like loving watching the Stark girls fight. She's smiling her ass off because she just likes watching Sansa be in pain.
It's like a cockfight to her.
Yeah, it's like a cockfight to her. Exactly. She's like watching the cockfight. Or wolf fight is a better the wolf fight. And and so Robert turns to Cersei and goes, "What would you have me do? Whip this little girl in the streets? Kids fight." And Robert's happy to let each father discipline their own child. And Cersei still wants some fucking blood, and she goes, that the wolf must be killed for maiming her son.
And it's not even about that wolf. It's about blood, because when they say that the wolf is gone, that they can't find the wolf, they're like, well, if not that wolf, then the other one. Right.
And both, this is one of the first and only times we see Arya and Sansa working together, where they're both just like, Summer didn't do anything wrong. Summer's good. What the fuck?
Yeah, they both come to Summer's aid.
Right. And in this moment also is around the time when Robert talks down to Joffrey and says, "You let this little girl disarm you? You're such a pussy." And so Cersei sends Ilan Payne over to get the job done.
Doesn't let him.
And
no
Ned
way.
stops him and says, a wolf is better. Excuse me, a wolf is of the north, and it's better than a butcher. And sad music crescendos. We get this like sad music chain of crescendo as Ned walks outside, and you see the Hound returning from a hunt, from the day's hunt, with a body slung across the horse's back. And Ned says, "Micah, the butcher's boy, you rode him down." And the Hound says,
"He didn't run too fast,
but not too fast." So Ned attends his duty with really sad music playing as he's about to kill the wolf and getting ready to cut its throat. And right as he cuts the throat of the wolf and the eyes of the wolf close, right at the same time we're interwoven with scenes of Bran in bed and kind of this like pan focus of going over to Bran till we get right to the point of when the wolf dies. Immediately, Bran wakes up, and that's how our episode ends. Fucking craziness.
Oh, yeah. Great episode.
Excellent episode. Now, compared to the first episode, I'd say as a whole I enjoyed the first episode more, but this episode felt more like on the ground running.
Yeah. This is where you get your first taste, anyway. This is where you get your first taste of your favorite characters getting killed. The direwolf.
The direwolf. I think those... Yeah, exactly. You're like, the direwolf? Oh, I love that puppy. It's so nice. Sansa's direwolf. I love them all. Gotta catch them all, Joe. And you know what else all we gotta do? We gotta talk about all the episodes of Game of Thrones. And we're gonna be back next week to talk more about Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones Episode 3, Joe.
Woohoo!
Oh, so Episode 3. If anybody has any questions they want to get in before the episode for us to address about Episode 3, you can email me at IGotIssuesMan@gmail.com or tweet me at IGotIssuesMan. Tweet Joe at DirtyLocks. You can find any of our podcasts if you want to find audio versions of our audio casts or our video live streams that are higher quality audio versions of our broadcasts. You can check that out at issuesprogram.com or on iTunes. You can find out all that information in the direct description box below. If you made it this far and you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button, thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, share it with your friends, and we're going to make it all the way through this Game of Thrones, Joe. We are fucking going to make it.
Oh, yeah, we are. It's so much fun not to. I love talking about it. I love talking about it over and over again because I love the story and I love how the story progressed, and I can't wait for the next book and the next season. And when I talk about it with you and I listen to you talk about your take on everything, it really helps me formulate the things that I know and love, and it allows me to remember things that I might not remember, and pick up the fourth or fifth time I'm watching it, little things that are new that I noticed that, oh yeah, and this leads to something I found later on in the series.
Absolutely.
And so I love discussing this stuff with you.
No, it's so much fun being able to go back, and we are going to get finished with season 1 before season 5 starts, and then, as we said, in between the seasons, we'll pick it up and do other versions like this. Apologize for any technical difficulties we had during this stream. If we came in and out, our internet is being a little bit of a bitch today with all the snow, and during the day, internet's being a little quirky here and there. We will be back later this weekend
Saturday.
on Saturday evening at about 8:30, 9 o'clock, 9:30 probably around there, 9:30 p.m. will be to be safe. We'll say around there to do Vikings, the season premiere of Vikings recap. And then on Sunday, Walking Dead and Better Call Saul, and we'll do it all over again. So we're in this shit neck deep. You can't really see it, but let me move my camera for a second.
The lighting.
Or that we got green screen and lighting, so I'm going to be making some videos soon, some shorter type reviews, and be able to add some more content to the channel as well. So look forward to that stuff. I'm going to start out with doing some Star Trek. So if there's any Trek fans out there, I'm going to do some of my Trek rants on that way, and also make a short little film thing that I've been wanting to work on. So a couple of interesting pieces of content will be coming out in the next couple of months here on the channel, so keep an eye out. And yeah, I think we should go. Oh, B-Track says, was it ever explained in the books if Bran was really in a coma or if there was something else going on? He said something else, but I don't want to say that.
It's not explained fully. It's alluded to at times, but it certainly does become clear over time what you're getting at. You know, and it's a definite possibility. It's even alluded to kind of with some of the other characters in the books, but not in the series so much.
Exactly, absolutely. That's 100% true, and that's something I wonder if it's going to be expanded on in the series.
I really hope it is expanded upon, because especially with the way some of the characters go, it helps understand the way they're able to deal with things.
Rachel says, I cannot wait for Vikings. Definitely looking forward to reviews on that. I'm really
B-Tracks, we're not even going to repeat that line that you wrote, and if we can, we're going to delete
it. We'll definitely get into that and explore that in Star Trek. I'm glad we have at least one Star Trek fan.
Can we ban B-Tracks from ever leaving a comment again?
Well, I like her a lot better after watching.
I was just kidding, by the way.
I like it a lot better after watching Orange is the New Black. I have new respect
for
her.
Okay. Well, yeah, when you get a better respect for some of the actors, but still definitely the weakest, and, well, tied for the weakest in the whole universe.
I also want to mention, if anyone's gotten to this point in the video, just to be clear about something, if anyone's looking for the very first episode of, I'm not going to get too into this, I just want to mention it, the Better Call Saul premiere episode, the recap that I did. It got flagged by someone in the community, so someone out there listening might have been the person that flagged it. But so if anyone's looking for it, unfortunately, the community strike was reversed when YouTube looked into it, but because they had already taken down the video, they could not reinstate the video. So I don't have any strikes against my account, but the video was gone. So if anyone's looking for that video, I'd like to thank everyone that checked it out, and perhaps after Better Call Saul.
Phil, ultimately it's your own fault, because as the great Quit Screen once said, all unsaved data will be lost.
Absolutely. It's my fault for not backing up that recording with even an audio recording. So if you did hear that Better Call Saul podcast, the one that was just me ranting about the first episode, consider yourself lucky. You are one of the few. It's kind of like Ren Renwood was one of the few people to actually, and I think B-Trax as well, to see me stream the second episode of the Telltale game because the video got fouled up after the fact. But anyways, folks, thank you so much, guys. We will we will talk to you guys soon. I just wanted to let you guys know if you're looking for that video where it disappeared to. Thank you guys for the continued support and sharing and liking and commenting on the videos. It really, really helps us. And as I mentioned earlier, if any of you guys are use iTunes or Stitcher, you can find our streams on those. iTunes has a stream for all our podcasts, and then we have individual ones for the Game of Thrones and Walking Dead. So you can check out all that stuff in the description below. Thanks, everybody, and talk to you Saturday.
Peace.